미국을 비롯한 주요 선진국들이 해결할 수 없다며 안고 가는 문제가 있습니다. 바로 음식물 쓰레기 처리인데요. 이 문제는 전 세계 유일하게 한국에서만 해내고 있다고 하며 시카고 대학의 한 교수는 강의를 통해 한국의 놀라운 행동은 자신에게 깊은 영감과 교훈을 주었다고 하는데요. 그가 말하는 한국의 놀라움을 한번 살펴보겠습니다.
Guess how much food do we waste in the US every year? Yeah, tons is a good guess. More detailed? 40% of food in the US gets wasted. 1/3 of global food production gets wasted around the world. Of 98% of all food wasted ends up in landfills in America. In South Korea, it's 3%. Moving on to South Korea, this is an amazing story. I don't know if anybody has been to South Korea, but 40 years ago, South Korea was as poor as an African country. Over the last 40 years, they've gotten through a huge economic boom. It's one of the, I think it's now the 8th largest economy in the world. High tech, poverty quite low, and they, because it's a highly densely populated place, Seoul has about 25 million people, and there's very little landmass, they had to deal with their own food waste problems. And they've come up with a very unique solution. But food is something that's of vital importance to all of us, and it may seem small compared to all the global topics like terrorism and migration, climate change, refugees, all these things, but actually food waste does impact all of this. How much food we produce and grow and distribute has an impact on climate change. The methane that comes out of the landfills is 21 times percent more potent than carbon dioxide. So food waste, think about it not as food waste at home, but as a global topic. And I wanted to do a story that's closer to home. And I wanted to do a story that actually is solvable. We talked about climate change, we talked about the Arctic, we'll talk about refugees. These are all really important stories, but they also feel somewhat distant. We want to help, we want to do something, but it is further away. So I want to come up with a topic that actually has a day-to-day impact on our lives. And moving on to South Korea, this is an amazing story. And I think this is the real amazing story about South Korea, is they have figured out that waste is not waste is money. And they have figured out how to create jobs through waste, to convert it into biofuel, animal feed, and fertilizer, created entire new supporting industries and economies, hire people, reclaim land, and it's really quite an amazing success story. This incredible economic driver, and was really thoughtful about how to deal with their big problem, which at the time was food waste. Koreans are very much a very sort of generous society. Food is part of everyday life. When you sit down, before you even have ordered anything, you get 15, 20 kimchi side dishes before you order your main courses. And they realize this is crazy. We can't keep throwing away all this stuff. Technology, they work with all the local telco providers to monitor the waste system. When a garbage bin is full, it gets the garbage company gets notified, gets picked up. And the way it works, there are 3 ways to capture food waste. One, you buy a plastic bag, and you put your food waste in there, and then you pay essentially what you pay on the plastic bag is your little containers with barcodes, and your barcode essentially is how you get billed. And the new system, which is called the RFID, which are these super high-tech Star Wars type garbage bins. And you collect your food, you dump it in, it weighs your garbage, you swipe your card, and you pay at the end of the month. And then we'll take a look at the second part of the film, which is in South Korea, to show you that solutions are possible, which I think is also what students care about. They get bombarded by bad news all day long, and they don't know where to start, especially millennials. But they need to know a problem, and they need to know that there can be a solution. So I'll show you that, and then I would love to sort of talk to you and see what directions sort of the questions are.
I was born and raised in Chicago. I ended up moving back here in Seoul about 8 years ago.
We actually have to pay for our food waste.
It helps that there's that law because it helps us be more conscious about it. Because it technically makes sense that you pay. You should be held accountable for how much you do waste, and that'll help you be more conscious about saving.
So for me, when I moved back to America for college, I was still separating all my waste. I was separating plastic, bottles, paper, aluminum, and my food waste especially. And I remember at that time, my roommate threw everything into one bag, and she just took it out to the dumpster. And I remember thinking, what a waste.
Soojin Woo and her mother Lee Bo-ak live in an apartment in South Korea's capital of Seoul. On this Saturday morning, Lee is making Korean fried sweet potatoes for lunch. But instead of tossing them in the trash, Lee places the food waste in this special container. In South Korea, separating food waste from the rest of your garbage is required by law. And anyone who doesn't recycle food waste faces potential fines. Seoul's 10 million residents started paying for their food waste by weight in 2013. Woo disposes of the food waste in bags bought from the city and tracks her food waste with a radio frequency ID card. Woo taps the card to register the household and dumps her food waste into the bin, which logs how much waste she'll be charged for.
At the end of the month, depending on how much food we wasted, we get charged and we get a bill on it.
How much do you normally spend on that bill?
It's only $2 to $3, so it's not too much. It's very minimal.
As their economy grew over the past few decades, South Koreans started dining out more and wasting more food. The country banned all food waste from landfills in 2005.
This is how a typical Korean meal is served. With free and unlimited side dishes called banchan. It sometimes means diners don't finish their food and it goes to waste. But it's more than just chucking the leftovers into the bin. In South Korea, you are required by law to separate your food scraps. It collects leftovers with a basket and squeezes the moisture out to lower the collection cost. She then takes out prepaid stickers and puts one on the box. Finally, she takes it out for the waste haulers to collect. Besides the box, there are two other ways to measure food waste: a standard prepaid plastic bag or more advanced technology. This machine reads your ID card, weighs the waste, and charges you automatically. In 3 decades, South Korea has gone from a nation of food wasters to food recyclers.
At first, we processed all the food and waste in landfills. Then we realized the pollution it created and wanted to find a way to recycle the waste.
Hyun says the city used to spend $600,000 a day on food waste disposal, money now saved through recycling.
It actually costs a lot to process the food waste. So we were like, let's find a way to save money. Also to reduce pollution, and eventually find a way to recycle the waste.
But before 1997, food waste mostly ended up here in landfills. It wasn't a good idea. Rotting food is a significant source of methane, which intensifies global warming. The strong odor also made people unhappy. In 1997, the government responded by introducing laws to separate and recycle food waste. Expanding treatment facilities and educating residents took another 16 years. But finally, in 2013, food waste became a part of a pay-as-you-throw system.
This one handles 80 to 90 truckloads every day.
This is one of 5 factories in Seoul that processes food waste. This machine dries the food waste and turns it into animal feed in just 3 hours.
Another byproduct of the food recycling is biogas, a mix of methane and other gases that can be burned for energy. This plant creates enough biogas to meet 90% of its electricity needs. Hyun says besides assessing fines, publicizing the benefits of food recycling is key to citywide cooperation.
As the awareness increases, I can say that out of 1,000 households, there are about 10 to 15% of households that do not produce any food waste at all. As we receive more support, I see we are on the right path to save the environment and more recycling.
Seoul's overall food waste has decreased 10% by more than 300 tons a day.
The food waste recycling rate in South Korea has risen dramatically over the years to over 95%. It's considered to be the highest attainable rate. But with an impressive outcome, it shows that anything can be done when you're determined to make it happen.
So what South Korea really shows is that food waste is solvable. It's a problem that with thoughtfulness and a really compelling case to feature, and they've gotten very, very little credit for it. So I figured this would be worth sharing in one of these projects.
미국은 한국과 달리 음식물 쓰레기 별도 배출 시스템 자체가 없습니다. 그래서 배출부터 골치 아픈 일이기도 하지만 매립이라는 음식물 처리 시스템 때문에 심각한 환경 오염 문제 또한 낳고 있습니다. 미국 환경보호국에 따르면 미국의 음식물 쓰레기 매립지에서는 2020년에만 1억 930만 톤의 이산화탄소가 배출되었다고 합니다. 이렇기에 음식물 쓰레기 중 95%를 재활용하는 한국의 음식물 쓰레기 처리 시스템은 모든 나라가 반드시 배워야만 하고 도입해야만 하는 놀랍고 사려 깊은 시스템일 것입니다. 많은 나라들이 한국에 사려 깊은 음식물 쓰레기 시스템을 도입하여 우리가 살고 있는 지구를 보호할 수 있는 날이 하루빨리 앞당겨지길 기원합니다.